What's up, guys? So today I'm going to share my personal hack to make sure I never send the wrong message to a girl. I call this my cleanse texting framework, and I share this with all my clients. Now, after I tell you how it works, I'm going to show you exactly how you can modify this for yourself so that it works for your specific blind spots. If you don't know me, I'm Carl, and I've developed a new online dating system that helps high value men get a flood of inbound DMs from beautiful women so that you can get your time back. I've also helped hundreds of men find dates and find love. Now let's dive straight into the cleanse framework. C stands for cleanse your mind. There's two aspects to messaging a woman. Number one is the logical things that you say. Number one, and actually more importantly, prior to that, is your mind, your mindset, and your beliefs. Now, what tends to happen is that maybe you know what to say, but if you're finding that with some girls, maybe the girls that you really like, you can't say the things, you can't text her the same way that you do the other girls, and you treat her differently. That's because your mind is not clear. That's because your emotions are clouding the flow that you normally have. And why does that happen? It's usually because you value this one person more than the others, right? And this has happened to me. It's like, okay, well, I know everything I should be saying. I've texted hundreds of girls, but then this one specific girl makes me freak out, right? Makes me start to feel needy. And that is when your mind is not clear and when it's not cleansed. So ideally, you want to reach a state where your mind is always clear and uh, you never get overly emotional no matter what girl that you're texting. Now that's not always possible. So the second best thing you can do is just awareness. So when you have awareness of what it feels like and your habits when your mind is not clear, maybe you wake up in the morning and her text is the first thing that you think about. Or when you receive a text, you're hoping that it's her, right? These are all signals that your mind is not clear, right? So you want to cleanse your mind. How you do that is going to depend on you, right? The long-term solution to that is do therapy, do some work, do some inner work, and get to a point where that is not influencing you. But if it is influencing you right away, one thing that I like to do is I like to just ghost her, right? You want to just ghost her. However long it takes, 2 days, 3 days, you're going to feel a little bit afraid because part of you is going to be wondering, well, if I ghost her, she's going to lose attraction. She might think I'm not interested in all this and all this. But this is much better than the opposite, especially if it's a girl that you like and you've been showing a lot of interest in. Just ghost her. It's going to screw with her mind, right? And then when you text her again, you're going to text her in the same way that you were texting her before. And you can even apologize, be like, oh, I want to apologize outright, but you can just be like, hey, I had a super busy week. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. When your mind is more clear. Now, the second way that you can use to clear your mind, this is a bit more when it comes to inner work, is every time you feel that trigger, say you reach out to your phone and you're hoping that it's her text. If you feel that trigger come, rather than acting in any way, like reaching for your phone and trying to text her, or retreating from that feeling, I just want you to sit there, literally sit with your hand reached out to the phone like I'm doing right now, and just feel those emotions bubbling up inside you, and just let yourself feel all those emotions, right? Because what happens when we have some sort of blockage or trauma that's affecting us is that we don't let ourselves feel those negative emotions, right? So let yourself feel those. That would be a first step, and then you can go further if you really want to into trying to understand where those feelings came from, or even just think your way out of it. So sometimes you can also think your way out of those feelings. So you could say, well, I'm feeling nervous because I'm worried that she's not going to like me. Now, is this a valid fear? You could start to question all of these things. But let's move on to the next point. Let's talk about lighthearted energy. So super simple. Texting is not a serious task, okay? And it's not something where you're supposed to be connecting too much. It's supposed to be just something fun and flirty and something that makes it easy to set up the date, right? So you want to have that vibe. It's more about vibes than anything else, right? So what I found is trying to be too serious over text, trying to create some connection is really good, but all of that should come from a lighthearted energy, right? So no heavy disagreements, nothing like this, although you can assert boundaries and you can say no as well. So that's lighthearted energy. Now let's talk about E, Obviously, cleanse, CLE. You want to energetically match her tone and her investment. So if you send something that's quite long and she responds, say she responds with 2 words, what you don't want to continue to do is just continue to send her long paragraphs, right? Because that's going to be a mismatch of investment. So you want to match her at least a little bit, right? So maybe bring down your words to 5, something like that. The opposite is also true. So if she is investing a lot, if she's writing a lot to you, and you only respond with 2 words, that could be interpreted as a slight from her side, right? So you don't want to be doing that either. So match your tone as well. If she's playful, you be playful. Lead with the playfulness. If she's sexual, you want to go sexual as well. Now, this is something that's really important as well. And the reason I say to match her tone is because one thing you want to make sure that you do is if she's giving you green flags or she's giving you signals to go somewhere and you don't take it, that could be a negative thing as well. So if she's making it really obvious that she wants you to call her or take her out or make things sexual, and you miss those cues, and you miss those cues consistently over time, then maybe she'll start to feel, or she will start to feel, like you are not the type of guy for her because you can't understand her and you can't read her cues, right? So that's going to lower your value in her eyes. So it's important that you do that as well. Now let's jump over to A. So A is assume she likes you. This goes back to the mindset, right? But a lot of guys are texting from a place where they don't assume that she genuinely likes them. So they think, so what this leads to is overcompensation, trying to do too much, maybe text too much. You have to match her investment, as we talked about before. But it also just leads to all sorts of craziness, right? So, and this is scary, especially when you don't know what you're supposed to be texting. Let's say you've got set up on apps for the first time. You don't know what to text. You don't know what looks normal. Like, what is a normal interaction between a guy and a girl look like that's flirty, that's romantic, that's not your sister or your mother or your friend or whatever, right? So you have to learn that. But once you kind of know that, you just want to assume she likes you, and she does, right? If she's texting you back, then she likes you. The truth is, if a girl is not attracted to you and she doesn't at least find you interesting and is curious about where things could go, she's not even going to take the time to respond to you anyways. She's just going to ghost you. So be cool. Just keep doing what you're doing and assume that as long as you keep doing what you're doing, you guys are going to end up meeting eventually, because that's just the way things work. Okay, let's talk about the next point here. Let's talk about N. So what is N? N stands for normal standard text. Now, this is something that I personally resonates with me. So as an Asian dude or a half Asian dude on dating apps, what that means is I don't have infinite options, okay? I wish I could be here and be like, oh, I have infinite options, but it's not really true, right? So what that means is, yes, I could get a lot of girls that I'm kind of interested in, but the girls I'm really interested, they come around a little bit more rarely, right? Let's pretend I'm talking about apps here, right? Which I am. So what this means is I don't really want to experiment with those girls, right? So the point is not for me to learn. There's certain girls where I'll be like, okay, well, this is a learning moment. I'm going to, try something that I've never tried before. Try and say this. Wonder how she'll respond to this. But usually, if I care about a certain outcome, and I know a lot of guys will be like, oh, just abundance. Don't worry about it. There'll be another girl that comes along. The truth is, that's not the case for every single guy, right? And if that's not the case for you, then what I recommend is actually treating this as something to gain or lose, because it's true, right? You could have an amazing connection with somebody. So what that means is I don't experiment with those girls. I just shoot the same text that I've shot hundreds of times before that I know works. Then I get around on the date, and once you're on the date, the dynamic is different, right? Because you can show yourself to a much greater and better degree than you can just via text, right? So I don't take the risk via text with people that I genuinely want to connect with, right? Now let's move on to S. So S is about statements, not questions. So you want to minimize the amount of questions that you're asking a girl. if we take that to the extreme, you can imagine a case where a guy is literally asking questions right from the start. Hey, you're so pretty. And then she responds, you're like, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, what are you doing today? What are you doing this weekend? It gets fucking boring quick, right? So those are interview questions. We all know that we should avoid that. So what should we do instead is you want to make statements. So, a good thing that you can do instead of asking a question is a cold read. So instead of saying, hey, where are you from? You could turn that into a statement and say, hey, you look like you're from Lebanon. And sometimes, like, if you do this a lot, you can just be fucking on point, and girls will just think you're a mind reader, right? It happened a bunch. So that's a really good way of introducing statements. Another thing you can do is if you have a question, just don't send the question mark, right? So you might want to send something like, "Hey, you free tonight?" What you could do is instead of having a question mark, just don't send the question mark. Just be like, "Hey, free tonight?" Or any version of this. Anytime you ask a question, hey, where are you from? Just don't include the question mark, and it will make it seem like you're not asking a question, even though you are, right? Now this is a really small micro detail, but it's a bunch of one percenters that all add up to, which is what helps you give the perception that you want to give, right? Now let's talk about E. And this one is very subtle, right? So it's about expecting her to be classy. Now, this is something that I have experimented a lot with. So the whole point here is you want to avoid sexualizing unless she gives green flags. So what I mean by this is there's some girls that will respond really well to you sexualizing the conversation very quick, but there's a lot of girls that are not into that, right? So what I've landed on as the best middle ground, because you also don't want to be the guy who is completely sexually dead, right? Who's cut off his balls. You don't want to be that guy either. So you want to be the guy who's masculine and can take the connection in the way it needs to go. But to do that, you don't want to do it in a way which is too you want to do it in a way which is classy, right? So what I like to do is look out for green flags, and this is what I'm recommending to you is you want to baby step there. So let's say zero sexualization is just, hey, what's up? And 100% sexualization is like, hey, I want to fuck you in the ass, okay? Now what you want to do is you don't want to go from 0 to 100. You want to go from 0 to 10 or even 5. So you just might say something like, oh, hey, you look like trouble, or you look like a mix of cute and trouble, right? Classic line. We've all heard it, but that is just a little baby step, and then you can go from trouble into something else. Another line I really like to use is I always get permission to sexualize. So I might say something like, hey, if I want to send something that is very intensely sexual, like a sext, I'll say something like, oh, I'm thinking about a lot of things that I would do to you, or perhaps I'd send something like, "Oh, it's a good thing that I'm not there, right?" because of the things I do, and then she'd be like, "What?" And then I get permission by saying something like, "I tell you, but it's kind of R-rated. Are you sure you want to know?" And this gives her the option, right? Saying she can say, yes, I want to know, I'm an adult, please tell me. Or she can be like, she might not just say no, she'll probably just sort of ignore that question. But that's a good signal that you shouldn't be sexualizing, right? So this is what I recommend. Expect that she's going to be a classy person, especially if I think this is just the safest route, right? The least risky route that still gets you good results. So that's what I recommend. And through that, you can sort of navigate. Now, this is true not just of sexualization. This is true of any aspect of the seduction is giving her those little signs that she can give you back to say, okay, I want to move things forward, right? Now, there's a little bonus here, right? So my framework is actually cleanse plus. I added on a little plus at the end. And this is that you should never sub-communicate or communicate that you feel like you texted or think that you texted something wrong, or that she would interpret your text in a negative way, right? So if you did say something that was kind of messed up, you don't want to address it. You don't want to be like, oh my God, sorry. Or be like, hey, did that piss you off, or whatever. So never try and save your text. Just move on to a different topic. That's the best way to save your text. It just changes the subject, right? Now she might, at that point, she might give you a little bit of shit, and then you have to learn to, or you have to navigate that situation as it comes up. Cool. So that is my cleanse plus checklist. Now, I did promise you as well that I was going to give you a little secret about how you can apply this for yourself. So one thing I've noticed is I've given this to all my clients with a lot of success, right? But what I noticed is that clients will have different blind spots. So I created this framework for my own blind spots. These were the biggest things that I was messing up over and over and over again. Now, blind spots for every single guy is going to be drastically different, right? So I've sat down with clients, and some clients, they just don't go for the date quick enough. Or maybe they explain things that they might tell a story which is like kind of on the edge and might be funny if you delivered it in real life, but over text, there's just like too much. Like a story somebody said, "Oh, I went to Russia and I got jailed," and blah 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 blah. And it's kind of like a funny, cool story, but over text, it was too much, right? So you need to isolate what your sticking points are. Now, if you're going to do this yourself, you should just write down why every single girl stopped talking to you, why you think every girl stopped talking to you. And over time, you'll be able to tell. Maybe you asked too many questions. Maybe you were too sexual. Maybe you were too sleazy, whatever. And then find out what your big blind spots are. Maybe you have the same thing as me where you need to cleanse your mind, right? From that, what you want to do is create your own acronym, okay? Go into ChatGPT, write down the main things, your main blind spots, find a nice acronym for it. Just like move the letters around, and this is going to become your checklist. So say you're John. John, your checklist is not going to be cleanse, but it's going to be clear, CLEAR, right? It's going to be the clear checklist, and it's going to be cover your blind spots, or maybe something completely different. Maybe you want the confidence acronym or the confidence framework. Now, that's what I would encourage you to do. Now, the hard part about that is knowing what your blind spots are, because if you knew what they were, there wouldn't be a blind spot. So if you need any help with that, ask a friend, maybe go to a coach, whether that's me or somebody else, doesn't matter. But try and figure out what those blind spots are, because those blind spots are the things that are holding you back from getting the results that you want with women. Now, it looks like I have a Chinese hat here. So I hope that was helpful, guys. By the way, if you created or want to create an awesome Instagram that gets you inbound DMs, or you just want help with your dating apps, your photos, your texting, or your dating, then there is a link in the description. Now, you don't need to click that. Full transparency, it is a funnel, so it's designed to sell you something, but definitely no pressure to click that at all. Just something if you wanted a little bit of extra help, right? Now, thanks so much for watching. Smash that like button. If you do, you get more content like this. Subscribe as well for the same thing. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. Hope that was super helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.